Hi, my name's Becky Anderson. I'm a PhD student within the Marie Curie Palliative Care Research Department, and I'm going to talk to you about my research exploring communication with relatives and friends of people at the end of life. For my project, I've recorded 30 conversations between experienced doctors and nurses and family members and friends of patients in a hospice. I use an analytic approach called conversation analysis to understand how the healthcare professionals and families communicate during these difficult conversations. Conversation analysis looks at communication in a high level of detail to let us see what people say, but also, more importantly, how they say it and how others respond. Alongside these recordings, I've interviewed some of these family members and friends to hear about their experiences of communication and what they found helpful or more difficult during these conversations. I'll also be speaking to experienced doctors to find out what they think makes a good conversation. This research is important because at the very end of life, families often have to make decisions on behalf of the patient. This means that effective communication with these relatives is important to make sure the right decisions are made and so that the person can have a good death and that their wishes are honoured. The quality of communication at this time can also have a long-term impact on the family, and so honest and clear conversations are needed to make sure that they have the chance to say goodbye and are not caused any unnecessary distress. I'll use the data I've collected to identify how things like prognosis and care are discussed by family members and experienced doctors and nurses. And from these findings, I'll provide recommendations about how to communicate effectively and empathetically with relatives at the end of life. After my PhD, I hope to design training for less experienced clinicians working in palliative care settings to help them to improve their communication with family members and friends of people at the end of life.
Hello, I'm Krooupa and I'm a third-year PhD student within the Marie Curie Palliative Care Research Department. My project is funded through the Bailey Marie Curie PhD Fellowship, and its main focus is to explore the use of a technical device called Bispectral Index in palliative care. So what is this device and why are we interested to test it with palliative care patients? Well, we know that palliative care patients sometimes experience alterations in their level of consciousness, either as a result of disease and symptom progression or as an effect of the medication that they may be receiving. And we also know that the monitoring of consciousness levels is currently mainly based on informal clinical observation, which is largely subjective. However, there are some technical devices available which can provide a more reliable and systematic assessment of patients' consciousness levels. And one of these devices is the Bispectral Index, a monitor which operates through a flexible sensor applied on the patient's forehead, and this sensor captures the electrical activity of a certain part of the brain and then through a specialized algorithm translates these readings into a number that appears on a monitoring screen and which indicates the person's level of consciousness. This assessment of patients' level of consciousness may provide helpful information which could guide clinicians to adjust the doses of medication with a sedating effect according to each patient's individual needs. So bispectral index monitoring could be particularly useful for the care of patients who are reaching the end of life and may no longer be able to communicate in order to ensure that they are receiving the appropriate types and doses of medicines that adequately target their symptoms. Now, we've used this device in a study with 40 patients at the Marie Curie Hospice in Hampstead and found so far that our participants considered bispectral index acceptable for monitoring level of consciousness. Currently, we are in the process of analyzing our quantitative data, which will give us an indication of whether this monitor can provide valid and reliable information when used in the palliative care setting. If indeed we find that the bispectral index can provide a reliable assessment of palliative care patients' level of consciousness, our next steps would then be to design a larger randomized trial to test the effectiveness and cost-effectiveness of an intervention using this technology in palliative care.
Hi, my name is Elena Marcus. I'm a PhD student within the Marie Curie Palliative Care Research Department, and I'm going to talk to you about my PhD research project, which has been funded by the British Liver Trust. The aim of my project is to develop and pilot test a questionnaire to measure the quality of life of people living with a condition called Primary Sclerosing Cholangitis, or PSC, within the UK. PSC is a rare and chronic autoimmune health condition which affects the liver and bile ducts. At present, there is no cure for PSC, and liver transplant is currently the only treatment option known to extend survival. This means that people with PSC can live with a number of symptoms day to day, such as fatigue and itch, which can have significant impacts on well-being. Symptoms can be unpredictable and at times severe, and for some people the condition may progress rapidly to end-stage liver disease. New treatments for PSC are currently being developed. It is important for people living with PSC that the impact of these treatments on quality of life is considered alongside usual laboratory-based biochemical measures. Once the questionnaire has been validated, it may benefit clinical practice by providing a measure for evaluating new treatments which actually reflects the lived experience of people with PSC. In future, the questionnaire might also lead to a better understanding of the condition by helping describe the impact of PSC over time and also between groups. My PhD focuses on the development of the questionnaire within the UK. Once I finish my PhD, I hope to remain within the department and contribute to the development of the questionnaire in other countries and also to its international validation.